Some of us can see through people. A minority among us can read another human being based on the smallest of tells, combined with an inherent insight which pops up in a small percentage of people born. This insight is, one could say, supernatural and very much isolating for that person's relation to others. What may seem like a blessing is actually a double-edged sword, not pointed in our favor. Now, as someone who suffers from schizophrenia, I see things a little bit differently. Now, not all schizophrenics have this stated ability to see through other people in regards to their motives and emotions, but some of us do. I also feel a deep connection with knowledge I've gained in previous lives. That's what it feels like anyway. At any rate, this is how it feels to see through people. Imagine most of the people around you have, a few flashcards on their forehead, describing briefly what they are feeling and why, as well as the most prevalent motivations in life, which provide the backdrop to their identity and how they live for almost their entire time on this earth. Pretty awesome or annoying, depending on how you view this ability, right? Well, not so much. Now also add to that an almost unbearable field of emotion shooting from the eyes of those who meet eye contact with you. Not all of us feel this way, but many empaths do. As you feel that part of them, they are not attuned with, looking into you. It's as if two laser beams were trying to cut your head in half. Yet interestingly, the vast majority of people don't even have access to the information their subconscious is always gathering because they don't know how to access it, or less likely, don't have a level of consciousness that can attune to this ability. So how to deal with this as an empathic or self-aware individual to that degree? Well, it honestly requires a bit of numbing oneself, dialing back the emotions all the emotions at once by focusing on the energy in the middle of the brain and moving that energy back to the very tip where basically your skull sticks out. And as you go through that motion of focusing on the center and moving it back, you just kind of hold it there as you go about your day. And basically this allows you to not have the same amount of contact with other people's consciousness. When we're focusing on a particular part of the brain, you'll start to realize that whatever part you focus on really lines up to different emotions, different ways of perceiving the world, and different ways of really using yourself as a person, using your identity, and becoming one with yourself at times when you want to be spiritual, and becoming one with the personality that you've built up in society when our lives require it. Because a lot of the time at jobs, our life requires it. With certain friends, our lives require it. But the ultimate goal is to be around people that you can be your absolute self with. But for most of your life, that's not going to be the case. So focusing on different parts of the brain and moving them based on what part of yourself you want to be at that time is a very important skill. So when you want to dial back the emotions you take in from other people, the emotions that you read, and how their even eye contact affects you, or even how their brief notice of you affects you, you want to focus on the center of the brain and then bring that focus back, and that'll move the energy back to the back tip of the skull. That's really where the ego lives. And when you bring your energy from the center and bring it back, that's when the ego can kind of allow you to exist in society in a numbed state, because in a materialistic state, one's ego is most active. So for further perspective on how to view the world in a way that allows you to move through it and function within it and be the kind of person you want to be at different times, for this further perspective, let's talk over here. It's funny, while I was making this video, while I was making the video for this backdrop that I'm using now at my university campus, I was sitting very still and just counting, and very few people noticed me. It feels like a lot of people in society don't notice each other a lot of the time, We're either focused down, we're focused ahead, or we have our earphones in, we're just focused in a direction that isn't constantly mindful. If you look at people when they're walking around, rarely do you see somebody staring up at the sky. You can still stare up at the sky and still have a vision in front of you, but it's always looking down. And this actually pertains to consciousness itself. When somebody is thinking materialistically, what they have to do to get this, what they want at that time, and how bad their day is going or how good it's going at the time, it's all very focused on the material. It's all down to earth. It's not ideas that you could say live up in the sky, but it's not ideas that live up in the gateway of the third eye. The ideas that are just behind this reality that make up greater realities. That's why people look down so much. Now, to keep everything in perspective for what we were talking about with empathic people, and I feel like to a certain degree I am empathic as well. To keep everything in perspective, we have to think of people in general, like the people you see right here on this backdrop. You can say they're really going through me. They don't even notice me. Just right here. But when we look at people in general going to their various destinations, doing what they're supposed to do, and going about their day, we have to realize that human beings, myself included, are just an advanced form of life on this planet. We are ultimately, we are a higher level of consciousness than ants. We are a higher level of achievement than ants, and we have a vastly greater level of self-awareness. But ants are going about their business. We are going about our business. Birds in the sky are going about their business. Trees are going about their business. We're all doing what we need to do to survive. The level of self-awareness in human beings is what makes us special, is what makes us significant on this planet. Now, that doesn't mean, however, we don't have that survival instinct that wants to connect us to society. And in society, we have to do certain things to get what we want in order to live a comfortable life, to secure a life for ourselves and our family and friends, and to try and enjoy ourselves. So it makes perfect sense that we would fall into a pattern that is symbiotic with with other people around us and with the society at large, just like insects, animals, plants do, in a symbiotic relationship. And there are weeds in a garden, of course, but even the weeds have their place. The weeds in human society could be, you could say, drug dealers or thieves, things like that. But they all have their place. They all have their significance in society, just like animals and plants have their significance in the ecosystem. We are a part of that ecosystem. We are a part of the grander whole. And just because we're more advanced, we cannot imagine that the same that is true for every other form of life is not true for us. We should understand that it most certainly is true for us. Now, keeping this in perspective, when you see other people looking at you, when you feel intruded upon, or when you just don't want to gaze into other people as an empathic person, then you must realize and accept that, most of the people around you are just fitting into their role in society and into reality itself. And they're just as much a part of the ecosystem as everything else. So do you get embarrassed, or do you insist on seeing into animals or trees? I feel like I can sense trees as well, but do you feel like you cannot cut yourself off from trees and dogs or insects? Do you feel like that ability within you doesn't exist? And if you do, then you're a very strange human being, because a lot of time we do cut ourselves off because we hold greater significance to human beings. We feel like they're judging us. We feel like, even empaths, we can't read every single thought. We feel like, okay, this is somebody that will push energy my direction that I won't be able to handle. And then when they actually are, or you're actually just reading them and it's just overbearing, we have to keep it into perspective that everyone else is just as much of a part of the environment as the things that exist in this world, as every other thing that exists in this world. They're just as much part of the backdrop as everything else. And the soul within our bodies is still a very low degree of consciousness and self-awareness in most people. And it's not that other people are stupid or you shouldn't consider them as people. It's just that our souls are the things that touch and that are significant. It's not the identities that you see walking around. The identity may be a particular kind of music, maybe a particular kind of preference in politics, maybe a particular kind of preference in attraction, or the kind of music that you were brought up with, and it just makes you feel at home. The kind of cooking you're brought up with and makes you feel good, and the kind of words that you use. All these things are part of an identity that is a part of the environment. It is the soul in everything that is not a part of the environment, that is beyond duality, and that is what we should hold greater significance of and be more conscious of looking at us and us looking at them than the identities that we feel the soul through, because a lot of the time the identities are filters, and these filters are what color all these emotions that we're feeling as empaths. As empaths, we're feeling all these emotions that are really projected by the identity. All these motivations, all of these judgments, all of this hatred, anger, love, lust, happiness, contentment. It's all different colors projected at us, but really the one light is the soul. So hold that into perspective. The identity that is overbearing towards us is not the source of the light. It is just the colors of the light. And that means it has no bearing and no relation to any level of reality that can really and truly affect us. Identities are entirely separate from soul. The soul is what you should really hold significance of. And once you have this perspective that, the identity that we feel all these different emotions from is indeed just the outermost layer and a very thin layer to humanity, you start to feel like, okay, everything, even my own identity, is a part of the environment. And there is no reason to hold the emotions we're feeling projected at us or we're seeing in somebody to great significance. Try to dial back your perspective on the emotions you're feeling, and try to dial back not necessarily how much you feel, but how much significance you place on the things that we're picking up. Because if we pick up the soul, that is very different than picking up the identity, as I've discussed. Picking up the soul is picking up the light, and that's what we should focus our empathic abilities on if we can. At any rate, I hope that I was able to give you a few techniques and perspective as well in this latter part of the video on how to deal with being an empath and what it is. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, feel free to shoot down in the comment section below on YouTube. And if you like this video at all, thought it was interesting, hit that thumbs up down there. And once again, this background from UNT, University of North Texas, which I go to now. This is my second semester there. I went to a community college beforehand. But if you want to support me on Patreon, feel free to shoot me, maybe just $1 a month. I'd greatly appreciate that at www.patreon.com/darkrealist, capital D, capital R. Now, I provide some extra content on there. Recently, it's just been, reposting my YouTube videos, but I plan to provide quite a bit more content that I don't provide on my YouTube channel at this point. So feel free to just give me $1 more a month of what you make, and I greatly appreciate it. You'll get extra content very soon. But hey, thank you very much for watching. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I hope to see all of you in the comment section in the future.